if you had been following my Twitter, you saw me kind of talking about this. I was like, because I had just got off from streaming and I saw this. Now, because of this whole impeachment trial and Donald Trump and the blue check marks are going to be out in full force anyway, especially when the outcome of said trial is not going to be the outcome that they maybe thought that they were owed to that. And again, they are going to be out full force, the blue check marks on Twitter, and they seem to have a lot of the same generic opinions. And I think quite often we conflate importance, like, social impact, because people may do things that put spotlights on them so they have followers, right? And sometimes we conflate that with having I don't want to say it's not necessarily about the correct opinion, because sometimes this isn't a matter of opinion. Oftentimes, this isn't a matter of opinion. It's a matter of them maybe presenting their opinion as something that is fact. And quite often, it seems like they don't know what they're talking about, right? And here, let me go ahead and I guess I can go to it, huh? Steve Kerr, for those that don't know, is a former basketball player, championship basketball player at that. NBA player, now coach of the Golden State Warriors. And he has had in the past interesting, or lack of thereof, interesting things to say about the world, right? He is your generic sort of mainstream leftist in terms of his thought process and the positions that he generally puts out there. Doesn't say anything that's remotely against the grain. Definitely in his field, when he's surrounded by people that just agree with him, he just basically says that, right? And because he's in his position of power, people are going to, of course, retweet it, like it, and accept it as if it is truth. He says 75% of all Americans, right? All Americans want to see witnesses in the impeachment trial. Over 90% of us, all Americans, want simple background checks for people purchasing guns. We are getting neither. The Senate is not representing the people. The term civil servant does not apply to those who refuse to serve. So what he's essentially saying is, you guys don't want to do what I want you to do, right? Or what he even feels the majority wants you to do. And therefore you're not representing us. And therefore, basically, you're wrong and such. This is a completely made up stat. And by made up, granted, he's referencing a article, not an article, a Quimpak, I believe. Let me see. Let me go here real quick so I can maybe go find that, because people were tweeting me it. But it was a poll that they polled essentially less than, for both of these questions, or the questions that they were asking, less than 2,000%. Just a little over 1,000%, right? So, yeah, I can actually pull this up right here. Hold on. Dang, man, I got to set up my stream deck, so it's not working. So new national poll, and they got all of these, the percentages of people, right, to it'll tell you, though, if you go to the actual poll. I don't know if here it goes, conducted by telephone. So there you have it. Among 1,900 people, self-identified registered voters nationwide, yada, yada. So what he is basically saying, if you just, put two and two together, is that he's conflating 75% of all Americans with 2,000 people, as noted by this CNN article. Say what you may about CNN, but they weren't necessarily the ones that conducted the poll. They just reported it. And granted, again, it's a dishonest way. They do this all the time, where they say things like of voters, of Americans and stuff like that. But it's really just a poll of a basically, I would still say it's a controlled environment, no matter if they are getting other people from different political ideologies. I would still say it's controlled, because it's not really representative of the entire, let's say, country or this geographical area, when you consider over like 200-something million people that are of the voting age, or 300 plus million people that are within the geographical area anyway. So, but again, he conflates this, which he just regurgitated probably the CNN headline, and thought that that was representative of people. Like, chances are you never got polled. I never got polled, obviously, in this. But he's using that as if it means that everybody or all want this to be a thing, right? And this is my thing also. And granted, I told him that I wasn't polled, but this is my thing, and I'm going to end on this note. Let's assume that 90% of people did want, let's say, it's a little different with maybe the impeachment trial, but let's say something like simple, quote unquote, simple background checks. There's not a background check that they would deem not simple, right? That they wouldn't deem simple, right? It's anything that they can basically try to utilize to stop you from getting a gun is going to be simple, right? Either way. But if we look at it from the standpoint of what he's talking, let's assume that it was true, which means he's saying that democracy equals what is just, what is righteous, and it's not. This is why democracy is actually a very bad thing, because it's tyranny of the majority. And what he presents it, and a lot of people present it as, if a lot of different people agree with us, we have the right to then, which you don't. But they think that they have then the right to force that on everybody else. Now, I've talked about this with gun rights and background checks and so forth. Obviously, no, right? I don't want no state orchestrated background check, right? That's a disaster waiting to happen. But for one, there's already, I think a lot of people don't understand how in certain areas it's very difficult to get a gun anyway. You do have to jump through these hoops and background checks and all of this anyway, right? Nonetheless, the state endorsing that or enforcing that is always a bad idea for me anyway. And y'all know where I'm at, all gun laws, including that one. Because it's just so easily abused, but all gun laws are infringements. That's the position. That's what it's going to be. If private gun shops and gun owners want to conduct their own background check before they give people guns, that's their right. They should be able to do that, but it being forced through the state is just terrible, right? But they look at it, Steve Kerr of the likes look at it, and this is why they have no problem saying things like that, even though it's not true. I just pointed that out to you. The poll does not represent all Americans. It's not even close. But nonetheless, even if it did, it does not make it right. It does not make it just because you put it to a Democratic vote. And the vast majority or the majority of 51% of the people said that, well, we want this. And now you think, well, you have to now force this upon everybody else. This is very dangerous. This is very, very, very dangerous. And this is why I always encourage you guys, no matter where you're at on the, where you think you're at on the political spectrum, you need to look into the state, look to government, what it actually is, and look at these concepts that generally people go around praising as what they actually are and what it means in the event that the vast majority of the people disagree with you. Because they only like this thing if it's something that they personally agree with. If there's, let's say, if they did the poll and 75% of the people that they had polled said the opposite, they'd be disregarding it, right? They only appeal to this, and this is the danger of it. They'll appeal to it if they can get or try to gear the narrative to where, all right, most of us want this, therefore it's then right. Like they have some sort of grounds to force that upon you. That's why, again, democracy is tyranny of the majority. It's a very bad thing. It is not a good thing. It's crazy that people, over the course of the recent history, definitely in America's case, they look at democracy as if that means like it's just synonymous to good, right? That's why I always show like, oh, this so-and-so is a threat to our democracy. I'm like, man, don't you threaten me with no good time talking about something as a threat to democracy. You threaten me with a good time.